Hi, I'm Mike Brecker, and today we're going to take a look at a Michael Brecker line that demonstrates the concept of going outside over a static dominant chord. Let's take a look. This line comes from a Steve Kahn record called Tightrope. The tune is Some Punk Skunk, I believe. The whole record's really cool, so I highly recommend you check it out. Now, this line in particular, or this song, the whole solo section is just a static G7 chord. It never changes. It's just a one chord vamp that goes on for an indeterminate amount of time and then comes back to the melody. Now, when you're playing over a G7 chord, there's all kinds of typical options you have. You could play your bluesy minor pentatonic stuff. You could play major pentatonic. You could play Mixolydian scales. Now, to keep interest high in what you're playing, if you stick diatonically for a very long time, it's really easy to get kind of bored, or your playing end up kind of sounding kind of boring. Now, that's not always the case. I mean, you could play inside forever and it makes it sound really good, but there's a chance of it getting stale because you're playing just good notes that don't have any sort of tension with them. In a long period of time over one chord can get a little tiresome for people. So there's a lot of ways to kind of add tension to that and to go outside. You could do all sorts of things like superimpose other chord progressions and all kinds of stuff like that. But I really like what Michael Brecker does on this particular line. All he does is he goes from playing a Mixolydian thing and then jumps to altered dominant, G altered dominant. He doesn't play the altered dominant of the 5 chord, which is typically what you do. You go to, you'd superimpose a D7 going to a G7. He just plays G7 altered over G7 and then brings it back. One way to look at the altered scale is to think of a melodic minor scale up a half step. So we're thinking G. So we want to go to A flat and play that melodic minor scale. And if I think of that in relation to G, I get a root, a flat 9, a sharp 9, a third, a flat 5, a sharp 5, a flat 7, back to my root. So I get my 3rd and 7th, root, and then all of the altered tones, which is really beneficial here. And so that's what Michael Brecker is doing here. He's playing A flat melodic minor over a G7 chord, which gives us the G altered scale. So if we take a look at this line, he starts on the 4 and then goes down to the 2nd, 4th, and 3rd. And then he does this really cool little line, which is just basically walking down chromatically to the 5th. So he starts on the 2nd, and he goes down to the flat 7, slides down to the 6th, then goes to the flat 6, and then goes down to the 5th. Now it's just completely chromatic. Then he jumps up to the flat 7 again. And then he goes down to, this is where he kind of starts falling into melodic minor. He jumps down to the flat 5, plays the 4, slides down to the 3rd, goes back up to the flat 5, and then sharp 9. Now he's probably not, at this point, he's probably not thinking melodic minor. He's probably just thinking chromatically working down, because the line's basically working downwards, right? So he's kind of going in a sense, right? Now, this line in and of itself has some cliches in it. That's kind of something you hear people playing in this. Those are two things that are kind of well worth spending time with exploring, because those are really cool little lines. So here's what we have so far. Now this next part, he just plays straight altered dominant. So it starts on the A flat, which G altered and A flat melodic minor are the same scale, right? Kind of like a 1, 2, flat 3, 5 pattern, starting from the melodic minor. And then he goes up. So he goes up, root G7, flat 9, sharp 9, 3rd, and then sharp 5. and jumps up to the root and the sharp 9. He plays 4, sharp 9, flat 9, and then he walks down this melodic minor run. Let's take that particular line down an octave so we can kind of take a look at what's going on here, because here's a really cool concept. This is what really helped me understand how to use these melodic minor lines into my own playing and to get the altered sound. So if I take a G7 chord, we have G, F, B, D, and then I sharp the 5, and have the root on top. I can kind of see that chord shape in that run, right? And so this helps me to visualize the chord and see the altered tones around it. So I could put, okay, here's flat 7 and third. I'll put the sharp 5 on it. Here's the root. Here's the flat 9. Here's the sharp 9. So I can see this melodic minor scale, this altered dominant scale, around my actual G7 altered chord. And this really helped me to get this kind of altered playing into my sound, because once I could see exactly how this related to what I was playing over, I mean, I knew this chord shape and all this. I could start it and end it in a way that made sense to me, rather than just try to play a scale up and down. So when we're looking at this line, I think there's two big things to kind of get out of this. One is this kind of walking down line. I really like that line, and I hear parts of it played all over the place, and bebop players and jazz guys and stuff like that. The other thing is to visualize your altered stuff around the actual chords you're playing. Once I got that into my playing, and I kind of made that connection, getting altered sounds wasn't just me playing a scale. It was actually something that I could play with intention, because I actually knew what I was picturing. I could see, okay, if I can play that, see I was going to C major, I could walk that in. I could visualize my chord around it, so I was then able to play. I was able to kind of make sense of what I was doing. Try to visualize some of these lines around your chords, because if you can see it with a chord, to me, I can apply it much easier, rather than thinking of scale and then do a little conversion in my head and think, okay, this scale goes over this thing. I can play this chord shape. So I hope you can get something out of this lesson. I hope there's something to grab there. This is a really cool line and a really easy concept as a way to play out over a static dominant chord, because you're reaching up and grabbing some altered tones, and just because it's just purely functioning as a tension, it's not going anywhere. It's not resolving to C like it would normally do if you play, a G7 altered chord. It's just going back to G7. But as long as we resolve those things, we can get in and out really easily. So thanks for checking out the lesson. I'll see you next time.